What message would you have to fans about who have been worried about your recovery and wanting to see you get back on the court? What message would you have to them about doing everything you can to get back on the court as quickly as you can?
I mean, thank you for just watching me, following what I have to do. But I just want to say I'm feeling way better than I was. I improved every day, and I'm going to keep going from here.
Will Luka Doncic finally be introduced into this series against the Utah Jazz, as Game 3 is on Thursday, Game 4 on Saturday, Game 5 on Monday? When will Luka Doncic finally appear in this series? This is Inside the Mavs right here on Kevin Gray Sports. My name is Kevin Gray. You can find me on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Kevin Gray Sports. Be sure to hit that subscribe button right there for all things Kevin Gray Sports here on YouTube. And you can catch me on your home with the Dallas Cowboys and Texas Rangers, 105.3 The Fan. Be sure to subscribe to the Gray Area Podcast, where you can download and subscribe to the podcast for free wherever you get your podcasts, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever you get your podcasts for free. The Dallas Mavericks look to take a 2-1 series lead against the Utah Jazz with Game 3 on Thursday, Game 4 on Saturday. The Mavericks have to do what they need to do to at least earn a split in Utah to get back to Dallas, tied at 2-2 with Game 5 being on Monday. The question is, how soon will Luka Doncic be able to play in this series? It appears it'll be a game-time decision going into game number 3. If he's not able to go in game 3, there is real optimism that he could finally make his first appearance in this series in game number 4. Either way, it appears that Luka Doncic is on the road to recovery, and it looks like he will be back sooner than later, which is obviously good news for the Dallas Mavericks. What they have to do is find a way to at least win one of these 2 games in Utah to continue to extend the life of this series. Luka Doncic finally spoke to the media for the first time since injuring that calf muscle almost 2 weeks ago, and had a lot of things to say about what he's been doing, how he's been feeling, and what he's trying to do to make sure he's getting back on the court as close to 100% as possible. In fact, I asked Luka Doncic, what's the biggest indication for you to know that you'll be close to as 100% as possible to get out in order to play? Here's what Luka Doncic told me during his media availability.
What's the biggest indication for you to know that you're close to as 100% as possible to get out onto the floor to play?
I mean, I don't know if I'm going to be 100%. I think that's tough right now, but, if I'm ready and there's no risk of injury, I'll be out there.
So he says, look, I'm not going to be at 100%. It's tough to feel that way right now. And obviously, if you're a Mavericks fan, that concerns you somewhat, obviously, because you want him as close to 100% as possible once he does step onto the floor. You don't want to have any kind of possibility that he re-aggravates the injury, or worse, something else happens. Casey Smith, who's a world-renowned trainer and one of the best in the NBA, who's worked with Team USA for years, is the Mavericks trainer and performance coach. So when you look at what he's doing to try and get Luka Doncic ready for this series, he's going to do everything that he can, and we've heard Jason Kidd talk about it on multiple occasions. It's going to be up to Casey Smith, the medical staff, and Luka Doncic to determine if he's able to play. If he's not able to play, we will prepare and go on without him, just like they did in game number 2, where they hit a franchise record 22 3-pointers. Jalen Brunson went off for 41 points. Maxi Kleber hit a career-high 8 3-pointers, and the Mavericks made a bunch of uncontested threes. I don't expect that to be the same going into game number 3. Obviously, the Jazz are awake, and what they have done is beaten the Dallas Mavericks 11 straight times in that building in Utah. We know how difficult a place it is to play in Utah and how loud that building will be. So it will be a hostile environment in Utah for games 3 and 4, but the Mavericks have shown, especially during the season series, that they have played them close. Both teams in this series earlier on in the regular season, neither one of them won a road game. Now Utah has won a road game in this series. The Mavericks will need to do the same as far as this series now is, as far as Game 3 and Game 4 are concerned. Luka Doncic, if he is able to be introduced in this series, obviously change the trajectory of how this series will look, and the confidence, if you're a Mavericks fan, will continue to grow once he is playing in this series. But even if he doesn't play, obviously Spencer Dinwiddie, Jalen Brunson have to continue to attack the rim. They have to continue to knock down three-pointers, and more importantly, and most importantly, I would say, Continue to ensure that you're protecting and valuing the basketball. They only had 3 turnovers in game number 3. That gives you an idea of just how well they were protecting the basketball. In fact, they didn't have a single turnover in the second half. They're not going to win the rebounding margin when it comes to this series. That's simply not going to happen. Yes, Dwight Powell has been rendered really ineffective in this series with the lack of pick and roll that you see when Luka Doncic is on the floor. If he is able to be on the floor, that changes obviously how things look from a defensive perspective from the Utah Jazz. But what the Mavericks can bank on is the idea that they can continue to attack the rim. The Utah Jazz cannot guard in terms of their perimeter defense. Donovan Mitchell and Mike Conley and others, not very good when it comes to guarding Jalen Brunson, Spencer Dinwiddie, and others. So they have to continue to attack the rim. And if they're able to do so and put pressure on Rudy Gobert and try to get him into foul trouble, that could spell success for the Dallas Mavericks. Back to Luka Doncic. Luka Doncic has been doing everything he can to get himself in position. It will be 11 days since he injured the calf muscle when you go into game 3, and then obviously 13 days by the time you get to game number 4. When he is available potentially for game 5, it will have been 15 days since he injured that calf muscle, which gets you really in that time frame of when you could expect a guy to come back if he has a grade 1 strain. We know that the Mavericks have kept it pretty much under wraps what kind of strain of calf that he actually has, so we don't know specifically how severe the injury is. But he's continued day by day. He participated in practice fully on Wednesday to give himself the best opportunity that if he goes through shoot-around and goes through things on Thursday evening, that there's a chance that he could play. Now, for me, I'm not expecting to see him in game number 3. I'm expecting him to see him in possibly game 4, most likely in game 5. And if that's the case, the Mavericks have to find a way to split these 2 games in Utah, because you can come back to the AAC tied at 2-2, introduce Luka Doncic into this series, and now it's a best 2 out of 3 in your own building with a chance to have 77 back on the floor as healthy as he possibly can be to help you try to win this first-round series. I asked Luka Doncic during his media availability, what message do you have to Mavericks fans about how they've been concerned about your injury and your recovery, and what you would say to them as far as your message is to the MFFLs? Here's what Luka Doncic told me.
What message would you have to fans about who have been worried about your recovery and wanting to see you get back on the court? What message would you have to them about doing everything you can to get back on the floor as quickly as you can?
I mean, thank you for just watching me, following what I have to do. But I just want to say I'm feeling way better than I was. I improved every day, and I'm gonna keep going from here.
So Luka Doncic saying, look, thank you for all the concern. Obviously, I've been doing everything that I can to get back on the floor as quickly as possible. I'm feeling better and better every single day, and that's the only hope that you can ask for at this point. Incremental progress, getting better each day, and more importantly, giving yourself the best chance to be as healthy as possible to avoid re-aggravation of the injury. For Jason Kidd and this basketball team, the adjustments that we will have to make going into Game 3 is that you have to expect Donovan Mitchell to play much better. You have to expect Rudy Gobert to play much better. You have to expect all the role players, Bogdanovich, Royce O'Neal, and others, to be much better in game number 3. They love playing in that building, and never forget this is still the number 1 offense in the NBA in terms of efficiency this past season. They know how to play, and more importantly, they know how to win in that building. But if you're the Mavericks, you're going to have to withstand the first 5 minutes, because the onslaught that the Jazz will try to come out with to try and set a tone early in this game is going to be important for them, for their own confidence and their own psyche, to prove to themselves that they have the best chance and the upper hand to win in this series. They have the next 2 games at home where they've been obviously very good against the Dallas Mavericks. The Mavericks have not won there in their last 11 trips to Utah. So it's going to be a difficult place to play for the Mavericks, but they can get a split in Utah. Knocking down 3-pointers, protecting the basketball, cutting down the rebounding margin, and attacking Rudy Gobert. They're going to try and find ways to make things difficult for Spencer Dinwiddie, Jalen Brunson when it comes to switching. Defensively, the Mavericks have to stay disciplined when it comes to their rotations. The scrambling defense, we've seen how well that they've been able to do to force tough shots for the Utah Jazz in the first 2 games of this series. if they can find themselves establishing that on the defensive end while being able to at least consistently knock down three-pointers, where I'm not asking them to hit 22 three-pointers in a game, their ability to possibly walk out of Utah with the split is very high. Jason Kidd and his adjustments in this series are going to have to be big, but more importantly, Maxi Kleber, who finally showed up in this series and more importantly looks healthy now for the first time in several weeks, his ability to stretch the floor from the three-point line is going to be massive. His ability to keep Gobert away from the basket, be able to have these offensive guards drive the paint, find shooters, but able to still finish at the rim because there is no real paint resistance for the Utah Jazz is going to be huge. And if that's the case, the Dallas Mavericks can find themselves getting out of Utah, doing what they have to do. Win at least one of these two games, whether it be Game 3 or Game 4. Get yourself back to Dallas tied at 2-2, and 77 could be on his way to help and possibly change the whole trajectory of not just this first-round series, but the entire first round and into the deeper parts of the Western Conference playoffs. Devin Booker's dealing with a hamstring injury. We know what's going on with Golden State. They've gotten healthy with, obviously, Stephen Curry returning. But you've got a chance to be able to win this series, but you've got to get yourself a split in Utah. Luka Doncic will be a game-time decision for Game 3. Most likely, possibly, you'll see him in Game 4 and beyond in the series. Can Luka Doncic come back just in time to help his Mavericks win this series against Utah? I guess we'll see. You can find me on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Kevin Gray Sports. Be sure to hit that subscribe button right there for all things Kevin Gray Sports here on YouTube. Be sure to download and subscribe to the Gray Area Podcast wherever you get your podcasts for free. And this has been Inside the Mavs right here on Kevin Gray Sports. We'll talk to you later.